Usually when a wrestler gets injured, it's a combination of them and their opponent messing up a move. However, wrestling is so dangerous that wrestlers have accidentally injured themselves. Randy Orton did this live on pay-per-view. At Over the Limit 2010, former tag team partners Edge and Randy Orton came face to face. The match was going smoothly and everything was normal. Then, Randy Orton started doing his signature pounding on the mat, and suddenly, the Viper's right arm went limp. It looked pretty bad, as Randy's arm dangled lifelessly from his body. It was later discovered that Orton suffered a separated shoulder. Now, it's believed that Randy Orton had done some damage earlier in the match. However, the pounding on the mat is what finally caused the Apex Predator's shoulder to separate. Regardless, the injury made Orton unable to use his right arm, and the match ended moments after the injury when both Randy and Edge were counted out. In October 2007, John Cena was ready to compete against Mr. Kennedy. Unfortunately, shortly after the match started, Cena got injured. The leader of the C Nation performed a hip toss on his opponent, but in doing so, tore his pectoral muscle off his shoulder. You can tell John Cena was in pain afterward, but he still continued the match. Not only that, but after winning, Randy Orton attacked him, causing a post-match brawl. The injury forced John Cena out of action for the rest of the year, but he would make a surprise comeback at the 2008 Royal Rumble. Triple H nearly ended his own career with a simple accident. During a Raw main event, the game teamed up with Stone Cold Steve Austin and took on Chris Jericho and Chris Benoit. Both teams threw everything they had at each other, and it was a very hard-hitting match. At one point, Y2J had Austin in the walls of Jericho, but Triple H managed to break up the submission hold. When doing this, Triple H planted his leg incorrectly and caused his left quadricep muscle to tear. Despite the incredible pain, Triple H continued and was even put in the walls of Jericho. The injury put the game out of action for months, but he was eventually able to return on January 7th, 2002. In a very scary coincidence, Triple H injured himself again exactly 5 years after his comeback. While wrestling in another tag team match, this time teaming with Shawn Michaels against Randy Orton and Edge, Triple H performed a spine buster. In doing so, the Cerebral Assassin tore his right quadricep. It was immediately clear that the game was hurt, and the match began to fall apart. However, Triple H did his best to keep going, and the other men eventually got things back on track. Unfortunately for the game though, he'd be out of action for several months, but did make a comeback later in the year. Brock Lesnar's first WrestleMania match was almost his last. The Beast was going up against Kurt Angle in the main event of the show. Because of their legit wrestling backgrounds, the two had an extremely intense and physical match. Lesnar and Angle gave everything they had, and I do mean everything. To close out the match, the Beast was going to perform a shooting star press. Now, Brock Lesnar had done this move earlier in his career, but had never performed it while on WWE's main roster. It sounded like a great way to finish Brock's WrestleMania debut, but it almost cost him his life. Brock Lesnar didn't get enough momentum and landed on his head and neck. This was mainly due to how exhausted Brock was by this point in the match. Somehow, Lesnar avoided being paralyzed for life, but gave himself a concussion due to the botch. Mick Foley's legendary and violent match with Triple H at the 2000 Royal Rumble was supposed to be his last. However, a few months later, Foley laced up his boots again for another match, but he probably shouldn't have. At WrestleMania 2000, Foley took on Triple H, The Rock, and The Big Show in an elimination match for the WWE Championship. During the fight, Foley got in the middle rope and tried to land an elbow drop on Rock. However, Foley completely missed and instead slammed his rib into the edge of the table. The Hardcore Legend was eliminated shortly thereafter, and Foley never wrestled again, at least for 4 years. On an episode of Raw in 2002, the main event was a 10-man tag team match. One of those 10 men was Kevin Nash, who had just returned from an injury. The match went on for a while, but finally, Nash got tagged in and was a house of fire. But then, this happened. Big Sexy tore his left quadricep just by running in the ring. The other wrestlers quickly knew that something had happened and filled the ring to distract the fans. The injury was so severe, it forced Kevin Nash to stay out of action for 9 months. While it was a serious injury, Nash himself has joked about the accident, and it's become a meme in the wrestling community. However, this injury and many others have damaged Kevin Nash's body. To see wrestlers who have had their bodies altered because of wrestling, watch this video.